Folks, I got to be dead honest with you guys. I am a real sucker for a really good cult documentary. I have read and studied about cults my entire life. I've read every book there is about Jonestown, watched every documentary, every one about Waco, Texas. Studied the Manson family since I was a little kid. I've got a stack of books in there on my table. 3 of them's about the Manson family. I've always been fascinated by cults and how that a cult leader could get control over a group of people's mind, not just one person. Not like they could just convince one, but they could convince an entire group of people to do things against their own interest. They could convince an entire group of people to do things that they otherwise would never do. And they could go so far as to convince another group of people to kill on their behalf and to end their own life at their request. Someone having that kind of mind control and power over people has always fascinated me. At the same time, I've always studied politics. And I noticed how politicians manage to convince people to vote against their own interest. I watched people in my part of the world for years vote against their own interest. And I started to see a pattern. I noticed that the politicians were using religion. You know, for years, politicians has used religion, and for years, the Republican Party have been the party of morals and of values, and, you know, we're the party of family, and we're the party of save the children, protect the children, and blah, blah, blah. And while we all know that's just stage props and bullshit for them, at the same time, they were never, I mean, we knew they were full of shit, but they weren't cult-like yet. They hadn't graduated up to a cult. They were just your typical everyday run-of-the-mill hypocrites. I used to sit and say to myself, man, what would ever happen if a cult leader or a deranged religious cult was able to take control of a political party and was able to seize that kind of power? What would it be like if that were to happen? And now I'm seeing firsthand what that's like as it happens right in front of my face. You got Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, standing up in front of a crowd, talking into a live microphone and saying that he is now the new Moses. Said back when they was trying to pick a House Speaker that he was praying to God and he heard God talking to him. He could hear the Lord speaking to him. And he said, I'm going to choose a new Moses. And he said, oh, great, then I'm going to get to be the Aaron to the new Moses. And he waited, and finally the Lord said to him, step forward. And he said, wait a minute, it wasn't supposed to be me. I was just supposed to be Aaron. No, Mike, you're going to be the new Moses. So God looked down on this planet, and out of everybody that he could have ever chose, out of everybody he had ever picked, out of all the brilliant minds who he could have came into and said, speak on my behalf, he spoke to Mike Johnson. And that should terrify the living shit out of any reasonable person that the House Speaker of the United States believes in this level of bullshit. But Republicans want to win, and the church wants to control everything. They want to control all aspects of government and all aspects of our lives. So, you got to work Donald Trump into this and see where he fits as the ringleader of this madness. Well, Donald Trump is trying to get reelected to dodge all accountability. They're not indicting Donald Trump during the middle of his campaign. He's campaigning to avoid responsibility and accountability. And so, he wants to get back into power. And the church wants the control over the government. And from day one, Donald Trump and the church have been using each other. Donald Trump's not a Christian. He can't name you one book out of the Bible. He can't name you one verse. He's never read it. He's never lived it. Said, I don't see a reason why I would ever ask forgiveness. Why would I have to ask forgiveness for? What did I ever do wrong? So he's using the church to his advantage to gain power and now regain power. And he will throw the church a bone and he will give them power in order for him to have power. So it's a situation where you have Trump who wants to have power and the church wanting to have power. So the church will throw out all their morals. They'll throw out all their standards. Donald Trump don't have to live up to any of them because they believe that he is fulfilling prophecies. There's a book out there called Donald Trump, Son of Man, the Christ. They have went into this book and they have split hairs to where anytime Jesus says the phrase Son of Man, which he's speaking in third person, they say he actually wasn't talking about himself in third person. He was talking about Trump. Because if you read what the prophecies of the Son of Man were and see what Trump's done, Trump is fulfilling that shit. That is how far they're going. These religious, crazy cults that, yes, makes for an entertaining documentary has now infiltrated our government. And we're supposed to be okay with that. And there's people out there, oh, man, you're getting too bent out of shape over this. You're reading too much into it. No, I'm seeing a grown man stand up and believe that God spoke to him and told him he's the new Moses. Let me try it out. I'll tell you what, let me try it out. I'll walk out in front of a room full of Republicans and I'll say God has spoke to me. I'll tell them that I heard God's voice speak loud and clear, and God said to me to come forth and to tell all of you that Black Lives Matter. And God told me to come forth and tell you that gay and trans people are his children and that you should love them and treat them with all the respect in the world. And God said that we should have free health care and free education for everybody. Universal basic income, everybody gets an Xbox. You know what you guys would say? You're crazy, man, God ain't talking to you. But you're perfectly okay with God talking to Mike Johnson if it suits your political needs and you don't realize just how batshit insane that it is. It's insanity. We're going to call it that. I'm not going to say this is interesting. I'm not going to say this is a both sides argument. I do not want a man holding any office. I don't want the manager of McDonald's to have God speaking to him, let alone the House Speaker, and let alone the President of the United States. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. I just want to get back to just two fucking crooked politicians bullshitting me. Okay? Can we just have that back? Can we just have two politicians up there? Yeah, I know they're fucking bullshitting me. Do we have to have the Manson family up there? I'm not gonna dog the Manson family. At least the Manson family listened to good music. I mean, at least Charlie listened to the White Album. I mean, there's that. Mike Johnson don't even have good taste in music. He's a total loser.